choose Colorado, you will get to decide whether this state should ban new oil and gas development across most of Colorado. Brace yourself for one of the biggest battles our ballot's ever seen. The anti-fracking initiative made it onto the ballot today. Our politics guy, Marshall Zellinger, explains what's at stake.
Just like every ballot issue, if you don't do your homework, it's going to read like gibberish. Shall there be a change? Blah, blah, blah. The part you care about, minimum distance for new oil and gas development, at least 2,500 feet from homes, schools, hospitals, and even streams. Right now, state law requires oil and gas operations to be no closer than 500 feet from a home and 1,000 feet from a school. What you're voting on would make that setback 2,500 feet, about a mile wide.
We felt it was important to be able to designate areas like playgrounds as also vulnerable areas, and protecting water is an incredibly important thing to Coloradans. I don't think anyone should be subjected to industrial development 2,500 feet from their home.
Ann Lee Foster is behind Colorado Rising, which got this issue on the ballot. Take a look at this map provided by the state. If you vote yes, new oil and gas operations can only happen in the areas shaded in white. The top 5 oil and gas producing counties would be severely impacted. Only 15% of Weld County would be available for new oil and gas production, much less in Los Animas, almost nothing in Rio Blanco, Garfield, and La Plata.
If you're driving billions of dollars of investment into another state in the United States, that is going to hurt the economy.
Dan Haley, president of the Colorado Oil and Gas Association, wants voters to know the financial impact of a yes vote. In a nutshell, oil and gas operations pay higher property taxes and they pay severance taxes on the value of what they take from the earth. According to the state, oil and gas paid almost $500 million in property taxes last year and as much as $265 million in those severance taxes.
All of Colorado has a stake in it, so if we're going to vote, then we want to make sure that people understand exactly what their personal stake is.
This is where that blue book that you get really comes in handy, because the state between now and when you get it is going to hone in on how much this could mean in property taxes, in severance taxes, and you know property taxes pays for school districts, for local governments, for those special districts, Kyle.
So we're in a situation here where there are going to be apocalyptic claims made, especially by the energy industry.
I'm no longer enjoying being a political reporter with all these truth tests that I'm going to have to do and all the ads that are going to replace all of your lawyer ads, your furniture ads, and everything else that one of our competitors mentioned on Twitter.
And voters should stay tuned for our coverage on this and that blue book for some authoritative information on exactly what this is going to mean.
And the blue book is digital now. You don't need to worry about that thick thing that shows up in the mail. Just read it online.
All right, make good decisions based on good info. Marshall, thank you. Denver police are telling us that the shooting outside Cole Middle School yesterday was one young person targeting another. A student, 13 or 14 years old, is still in critical condition. Denver police did not disclose until this morning that a juvenile suspect was in custody. He was first brought in around 6:40 last night. That was right about the same time the Denver Public Schools were telling parents that a suspect was in custody, and then the school district was forced to send out a correction saying that they were wrong. And here's the issue. That only layered on to all of the confusion that the district caused by telling parents that students were safe when it was a student who was critically injured outside the school. Plus, what the district now admits were communications breakdowns between the school and police in getting information to parents. Suffice to say, this needs to be straightened out for DPS families. Denver police and the school district need to get on the same page about communication before the next incident sends families scrambling for reliable information. Because I think everybody can agree they did not get it yesterday. The most scrutinized police officer in all of Aurora has now been cleared in one of the 2 shootings he was involved in over the summer. Prosecutors say that Officer Drew Limbaugh, who actually served as a former Army sniper at one point, was justified when he shot and killed a man at a hotel on Colfax in June. Police say the man pointed a gun at the officer and tried to fire, and that's when Limbaugh shot and killed him. A month later, Limbaugh was the officer who also fired into a home in Aurora, killing a grandfather named Richard Black, who is defending his house from an intruder. Prosecutors have not made a ruling on that case. You might have heard that a reporter in Denver had a run-in with cops last month. They cuffed her, and according to newly released body camera footage, they said a few things to her that are not exactly true. Here's Chris Vanderveen.
It's July 5th. Something is wrong. A man is wandering next to Colfax naked. Police respond.
Yeah, I got a taser.
In a way you might expect when there's a call.
Sir, have a seat.
Call like this.
Down on the ground. And down on the ground. Right now. All the way down. Which pig? All right, we'll take care of you, okay?
Ambulance shows, and then up there, a problem, at least as far as police are concerned.
This is protected by HIPAA. You can't record here.
Stop for a moment. He's referring to a federal law known as HIPAA, or the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act.
There's also a First Amendment. Have you heard of it?
She is Susan Green, editor of the Colorado Independent.
Well, that doesn't supersede HIPAA.
It doesn't supersede HIPAA.
Stop. Those officers are wrong about that. HIPAA is a health care privacy law that applies only to those who work directly in health care. It does not apply to these police officers. Consider that as we play the video once again.
Step away,
Hold on.
or you'll be arrested for interference. Step away, or you'll be arrested for interference.
Keep in mind, she's merely recording with her phone, something the law allows any one of us to do. Then this happens.
Stand up straight and act like a lady.
Stand up and act like a lady.
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
They act like a lady?
There you go. Now you can go to jail.
Turns out that never happened.
Somebody take a photo of
Being
this,
recorded.
please.
It's being recorded.
They did keep her in the back of a police car, only to eventually let her go.
I don't know why you got to make this so difficult. Just relax.
Months later, Green is still mad.
It's our job to not take no for an answer when no is illegal.
She and her newly hired legal team will consider a lawsuit.
What is it going to take for Denver to allow reporters to do their job and to report?
The Denver district attorney found the officers did nothing criminal here. As for Green, she never even faced a ticket.
All right, have a good day.
Police internal affairs are still investigating to see if officers potentially violated policy. For Next, this is Chris Vanderveen.
Denver Police Department said they sent out a training requirement to all officers after the incident, asking them to review First Amendment policies, including officers shall not threaten, intimidate, or otherwise discourage an individual from recording if that person's in a public place and not interfering. DPD would not talk about the particular incident there while it's under review. In this time of media criticism, both fair and unfair, let's examine again, this is why they hate us. HLN last night talked to a man who made unsupported, unverified claims about Chris Watts, the murder suspect investigators believe is responsible for killing his pregnant wife and daughters in Frederick. The cable network, right before a live phone interview with this man, actually said, quote, "This is a story we have to be honest with you, we can't independently verify, but it is a story that could be extremely telling." Telling us what exactly if you have absolutely no idea if this man you're about to put on national television is telling the truth? You gotta know, despite the fact that that happened on cable TV last night and might have showed up elsewhere here in town, that is not how most journalists do business. Putting somebody on TV to say things that we have absolutely no idea if they're true while a murder case plays out in our community. It's irresponsible, and that is why they hate us. The group trying to stop a Denver Olympics from happening has submitted a ballot proposal to the city. They want a public vote before Denver can spend any taxpayer money on an Olympic Games. We're going to find out tomorrow if their ballot language is approved, and then they can go out and collect signatures to get this on the ballot next May. Now, just to be clear, this would be a yes or no vote on whether to require a future yes or no vote on Denver taxpayer dollars for the Olympics. Republicans celebrated bipartisan donations coming in to put President Trump's portrait up at the state capitol. Except the Democratic state representative that they said donated did not donate. They've now issued a correction saying it was just somebody with the same name. This whole portrait thing has been a mess. So there was a liberal activist that we told you snuck into the state capitol to put up a portrait of Russian President Vladimir Putin to mock Republicans who had not raised a dollar to put President Trump's portrait up alongside those of his predecessors. That sparked Republican anger and Republican fundraising, and they quickly compiled the $10,000 needed for the Trump portrait. Republicans were so eager to note that a former Democratic state representative, Dorothy Butcher, had donated that they missed that it was some other Dorothy Butcher. Well, guys, that's what happens when you're Russian. Just Putin names on a list without some kind of checkoff process. Senate Republicans, to their credit, were like, "My Vlad, okay? Gee, be more understanding. It was a mistake. So be it." Summer weather's back. Plan on spending some of that holiday weekend out at the pool. It is going to be a warm one after a partly cool week. And questions after a drone crash near a farmer's market in Denver. A next viewer wants to know the rules of the sky. We'll take care of that for her. Our next question comes from a viewer named Robin, who witnessed a drone crash into the Platt Park Farmers Market. This drone was quite heavy and could have seriously injured a small child or pet or adult for that matter, Robin writes. It seems there are no laws or regulations regarding drone usage in Denver, even in large crowds or around power lines. How can this be true? Robin, our Noel Brennan took off with our drone to get you an answer.
We're returning to the scene and doing our very best not to recreate it. The drone disaster on Pearl Street, okay? That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but this is where Robin says she saw a drone crash 2 weeks ago during the farmer's market. So now we need to go fly to her to get her story and her question answered.
My name is Robin Walker, and I think drones are of good use to society today, but they're a nuisance in public events and outings. I was attending the farmer's market at Platt Park on Pearl Street. I heard a drone fly over. Everyone in the place was looking up to see what that noise was. It flew over and then it turned around and flew back. And in that process of flying back, it hit some electrical wires there and it dive bombed right onto our umbrella. It hit and fell apart and caused major damage to the umbrella. The question is there any regulations of drones flying over public outings like that?
It depends, actually. Denver's only rule is no drones in city parks. The city defers to the FAA for everything else. Here's where it gets complicated. We don't know if the bozo who crashed this drone had a commercial drone pilot license or not. The FAA says commercial drone pilots can't fly directly over people unless they get a waiver, or the people they're flying over are part of the flight team. If you fly for fun, people are fair game, unless you live in a city that's made rules that say otherwise. Denver isn't one of them. Sorry, Robin.
I think we can get pictures just as well with standing people and cameras, old-fashioned way, I guess.
Our drone may beg to differ.
So if you do break the rules, know that the FAA could potentially come after you with something like a civil penalty. Also, keep in mind, FAA wants you to know that if you see something like what happened at the Pearl Street Farmers Market a couple weeks ago, report it to them, let them know about it. Hey Kyle, I should point out our drone has been flying for this entire story and we did not break a single rule because we've got some very talented commercial drone pilots at the station.
All right. The rules are very important. That's kind of cool. See you later, Noel Brennan.
Noel, that is so cool. And now you've set the bar. I will just strive not to drone on and on with the similar forecast day after day. As a matter of fact, we had sunshine and 90 today, but things are changing coming into the upcoming holiday weekend. Some changes in the longer term models. Our high above average by about 5 degrees. We'll see that Thursday and Friday. Smoke and haze still evident for many areas. Again, the worst of it off to the west and north of us. Building high pressure is going to bring a quiet period for about 48 hours. And then there's a weak weather system that will come in that may impact outdoor plans now over the holiday weekend. 3 days. And before that time, the worst of it will just be the fog out on the far eastern plains late tonight and tomorrow. We have mild overnight lows for lower elevations, but up in the high country, some lows tonight will be in the 30s. 58, that's where we start you off Thursday morning. We go partly to mostly sunny by midday and our high at 91. Similar forecast Friday. Good chance of rain from storms late Saturday, so plan that into your outdoor barbecue plans. Sunday's cool and dry, and Monday I introduced thunderstorms back to the forecast now. It looked dry and quiet, but all of a sudden there's a little storm knocking on the door, and way up high these clouds are bringing rain to some of the higher peaks. Always a great piece of news.
I have expressed a lot of concern here about our future robot overlords running the world, but that was before I knew they will pour our beers. Meet our new robot friends. next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is an elementary school on lockdown in Boulder because there was a bear traipsing around outside the building. We tried to spot it there near Flatirons Elementary. You know, people made a lot of fun of Education Secretary Betsy DeVos when she said that teachers needed guns to protect against bears. But who's laughing now, huh? Probably the bear outside Flatirons Elementary. I'm not exactly in need of more reasons to go to Colorado's great beer festivals, but robots would be a draw. Here's our photojournalist Mike Grady with that.
It's not surprising what happens when you get the old polka beer 1-2 punch. There were plenty of tunes and brewskis at the Backyard Barbecue Brewfest in Wheat Ridge.
Very well-rounded wild say sauce.
Chris Hanks from Alpine Dog
Try one of those?
was in the glow from the brewery's very red tent, doing what he does best.
I sell all the delicious liquid that comes out of our taps.
He had a little help at this event.
What's up, girl? You want some robot beer?
I think it's a cool idea.
This is a robot that pours beer. Touch a button, and it goes to the tap and pours that beer for you.
All these green points allow you to verify where it's going to position itself.
My good friend Mitch was a customer at my bar.
I'm an automation engineer.
And we were like, how can we get this to do my job?
Chris with Alpine Dog was a great partner to find in that he also loves automation and knows that it's kind of the way of the future.
It took the team about a half hour to set up the robot to operate these two taps.
We program it to certain points and then set it to a program, and then it runs that program.
It can honestly take less than an hour to really teach someone how to use this robot.
Neither Mitch nor Chris worry about machines replacing people behind the bar.
And half of my job is getting that first drink into anyone's mouth. The second half of it is explaining how much they're going to enjoy it.
It always takes time away when they've got 10 to 20 different customers waiting for a beer.
My job essentially is not to pour the beer. My job is to inform and educate about beer.
Bartender, an engineer, and a robot, slinging beers and keeping polka fun.
That smile is my favorite part.
For next, I'm Mike Grady.
Let your robot overlords take care of your mouth, sir.
I like this. Chris and Mitch say it's research, which is incidentally what I tell my wife when I go to beer festivals as well. They are creating an app to use at weddings and other big events, so you could order a beer, the robot pours it, the app tells you when it's ready. Future is now, folks. It is a sign that God has a sense of humor, or at least the people who work for God in Littleton. And your feedback about this unholy mess next. It's a sign spotted by next viewer Jerry Clayton on the dumpster bins outside Columbine United Church in Littleton. Church dumpsters are not for public use. Jesus is watching you. That is fantastic. Even if we all know that Jesus has bigger problems than where people throw out the recliner that won't fit in their household trash. Send signs you see to next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag #HeyNext. Chris Spomer writes in tonight during the program wondering about this Denver ballot initiative to prohibit Denver taxpayer money to be spent on the Olympics. He says, hey, Next, why isn't the Olympic vote statewide? There is likely to be a non-binding statewide initiative that's put up. This Denver one could shut off a big source of funds. So even if the statewide initiative passed, they would still be up you-know-what creek if they can't use any taxpayer money out of Denver. And Marlene writes in tonight asking, how do you decide to match your clothing? Supposed to match? See you next time.